nonsense, and that's okay. You and I have predetermined consequence, and that's okay. And that's okay.
We need to be able to have conversations without feeling like we're going to say something that gets us thrown in jail because people happen to be offended.
Skepticism, skepticism. Do you know what you believe? What you believe? What you believe?
Well, that would be my fault for not having my volume turned up. So there, maybe I just cracked the code. There we go. We're coming through clear. Sweet. And now I just spilled my water. Great. What does my life mean to me? Nothing now. I just spilled my water on my crotch, and now my crotch is cold.
Time to end it all.
Time to end it all. How's it going, Dal?
Pretty good on my lunch break.
Nice. What does your life mean to you, Dal?
Well, I guess it depends on what we mean by meaning, but if I'm going to do all the things, if I'm going to do all the legwork.
And by the way, everyone who's in the room, if you want to start with talking about what you mean by meaning or what meaning means to you, that's fine. Or you can just you can just assume a colloquial definition for the state of this. I'm okay if you do either or. So.
Well, I guess I tend to take meaning in a more moral sense. Like, I tend to think that meaning comes from things that satisfy your moral foundation in a way. So if I was going to really try to break this down, I would say something like encouraging thought that will allow for, more thoughts to occur. Something along those lines might be the thing that gives me the most meaning in my life. Just trying to encourage other people to have new ideas and to not exclude ideas just because of an adherence to a currently existing one. Stuff like that.
Okay. Cool. And what does your life mean to you?
What does my life mean to me?
Yeah.
I don't even know how to answer that question.
Yeah. It's an abstract question, right? What does it mean to you to be able to be in the forest with the trees? So, guys, think about this one. What does your life mean to you? As soon as someone has an answer, please feel free to jump in. And we're going to stick to the way the question is framed. So, what does your life mean to you? It's not an easy question. Sharia Vashishit, I'm pretty sure I butchered that pronunciation, says, life means a biological fluke that happened to me, and now I try to make the fullest of it by constantly learning so as to make more sense of everything and get clarity of what life possibly can be. Interesting. And Sharia, I would like to ask you, what does it mean to you to be able to see your family or to do something you very much enjoy? What does that mean to you? How about Mace, Doolittle, Archangel, Captain Jack? Do you guys have an answer?
Still dwelling on it at the moment.
Yeah. Go ahead. Take your time.
I'll try to answer what does it mean to have meaning. That's because I think if you don't focus your thought through that, it's kind of hard to figure that life has any meaning at all. So,
and also,
I would say,
Doolittle, since you brought that up, I will say that feel free to answer this from, if you believe life has intrinsic meaning, feel free to answer it from that. If you believe that there is no intrinsic meaning, answer it based on your subjective meaning, not getting into whether there is objective or subjective meaning or not, because we've already talked about that a lot. But go ahead, Doolittle.
Yeah, so I think the meaning to me means the meaning of the word meaning when you're talking about the meaning of life, or does your life have meaning? Is there a purpose for which you were created? That's the simplest I can put it.
So
Is there
that's a
is
good.
there a reason why? Yeah, is there a reason why you're here? And you can translate the word "you" or purpose. Like who created you, and why were you created? Why are you here? What's going to happen when you're gone? These are the questions we have to struggle with when we try to figure out what's the meaning of our life. And to me, life is I'm not a theist, so I don't. Maybe I might be using my terms wrong, but I don't necessarily believe that there's a God out there that created all of us. But the life that came before me created me. I'm
Right.
almost certain of that.
Right.
I think I was created. It was by my parents, and I think all of us were created by parents. And so what life is just this repeating pattern of something that perpetuates itself through time and space by essentially creating a repeating pattern that can form new ones of itself and propagate that way. And so my purpose, if you think about the cellular automaton games that you may have seen, life would be any one of those things that any one of those cellular automaton patterns that propagates through space and time. And we're a little bit more complex than the two-dimensional on-off quantum and cellular automaton games. But nevertheless, that's what we are. I think it's a little bit more of a complex pattern.
Well, I would argue
our
we're
purpose
a
is to
I would argue, just to add on to what you're saying, we are a multiplicity of that simple rule process.
Oh yeah. So it's incredibly complex, and to say, well, why was I put here? Well, I was put here to replicate that pattern that came before me, and to to create and maintain the order in the world, so that pattern can keep replicating itself.
And so that might be the biological purpose. So are you equating that to how you read meaning? For instance, and another way to ask you, Doolittle, I find, what does it mean to see your daughter succeed? What does it mean to you to see your daughter succeed?
Yeah, so in the context of the way that I put the meaning, what is the meaning of life in general? To me, when I see my daughter succeed, then that's an indication that I've done something right, and that I have some internal peace, that knowing that perhaps there's a good chance that the patterns that I've created will live on into the future. Who knows how long? But at least one more generation. And if I see my daughter fail and turn into a degenerate whatever, then I would say, oh, I must have screwed that, and that would make me feel really bad about my performance in terms of executing my life in accordance with my meaning.
And when you do see your daughter succeed at something, what are some of the pleasures you experience in seeing that? Do you think, if you were to try to put that into words, not so much the big picture, but the small picture of that, what does that attribute a feeling of meaning to you, or? Oh
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I to put it simply, is for people that haven't had children, to know what that feels like. If you raise a puppy, right, then you get a special bond, and there's a certain feeling of pride that you have when you have a puppy that's well trained. When you grow a garden in your backyard, that's something that you've tended to, that you've helped it flourish. And there's something special about, having a garden that you planted and grew yourself, and there's something special about the food that you get to eat that it gives you, and having a child is like another level of meaning above that. And even if you haven't had children yet, you can kind of get an idea of what it's like to how special it is to have somebody that you created essentially
Right.
take on a form of their own and become successful living their own life. And it's kind of like gardening or raising a dog or building a house, or having some kind of creation of your own. And then the fact that it's your own your own children it's the same kind of feeling, but it's another level better. It's another
Right.
level better than that.
Okay.
And I suppose it's another level worse than that if you have to watch your children die.
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to pass the mic around. Thank you so much for that,
Yeah.
Doolittle. Let's, Dal, you didn't quite finish. Can we finish with you, or do you have time before you have to get back?
Yeah. No, I got the call today.
You're breaking up a bit, Dal. I'll probably have to come back to you. Captain Jack Killian. Captain Jack. What does your life?
What up?
What does your life mean to you? We're getting a bit of buzz from your mic, by the way. I don't know if we can.
Me? Oh yeah. Hold on a second. That's
It's noisy.
it's probably my fan next to me here.
Oh, that's better, I think.
Yeah, it was just a fan then. So I've been thinking about it for a second, coming at this from an existential nihilistic point of view, and because life doesn't have any meaning to me, like just generally, and I decide to pick things that have meaning to me and choose to put whatever I believe, whatever meaning into whatever it is. I've kind of decided that my meaning in life is to pick the things that I enjoy and put my time and energy and my meaning into them, and pretty much just not waste any energy on anything else. The meaning of my life to me is to enjoy what I enjoy and don't waste my energy on things that I don't. I want to be as content or happy as possible consistently. And although I know that's impossible to have that at a constant, I think just like I don't let people's opinions of things that I like bug me, and I think that kind of takes it up to where my meaning in my life is I pick out things that I think have meaning. I hold on to those things, and I grow from them and learn more things to put meaning into. And that's all I'm going to do until I die. I'm going to find things that have meaning to me and continue to propagate those things. And those things can be literally anything. I might find meaning in some fucking rock I find on the end of the road. I don't know.
Right. Come to Bruce. What
does my life mean to me?
Yeah.
We found the meaning that I was God's purpose, in the meaning that most inconsequential. What my life much more important. So that is not my own purpose.
And Father.
This and their material success or even like physical accomplishments are, I think proud feeling.
Sorry, guys, on YouTube, I'm getting a bit of lag from Discord here. I'm going to try rebooting. Let's see. Bear with me. Yeah, bear with me, guys. Just getting Discord back up and running here. Just crashed on me. I don't know why it's full screen all of a sudden. OBS seems to be running fine. Why?
Trav, so you're in BC, yeah?
Fahrenheit and sunny. Beautiful weather there.
Yeah, that sounds
I'm jealous.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm moving
always
to
nice.
Canada. Please let me into Canada.
No,
Please.
that's only that part of Canada. Don't be fooled by the.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll live in
Okay.
Vancouver. That's fine.
Okay, I think I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, hey, Mr.
Yeah,
Pang.
what happened to the moose this time?
I don't know. The moose satellite dish must have ran for a drink.
Hit by a car. Hit a car.
Went too deep. That's what she said. 2 seconds here. Let me just get
The moose
the screen
mucking
back.
about over there, eh?
Yeah, it's going
Don't
everywhere
you know?
around here. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, you
I see
bitch.
it.
Oh, you betcha.
Okay, there. Okay, sorry about that, guys. We are back. I'm just going to keep the room open like this. Sorry, we were finishing off with Bruce there. Bruce, you were describing how it feels. You mentioned pride as one thing you might feel if you see your children succeed. Pride over your children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and I think that's just the nature of man to be proud of their accomplishments.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so that's that's the honest answer. But the goal is to try and not inflate my own self in that, and
Right.
give glory to the purpose.
Okay, interesting. Let's invite Brett. Brett, go ahead. What does your life mean to you?
Well, because I believe in God, it means that my life was planned. I was created with intention. It's the reason I have sentience. It's the reason why I'm even able to be a father and have children, because of God's love. To believe that I came from a rock would mean that I'd have to tell my children, oh, we come from a rock, no intelligence included, and we may have evolved from fishes and apes and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really give meaning and purpose to anything. I don't know how anybody could feel any kind of happiness and love from that, especially why bring a child in the world when you know they're just going to die and be nothing anyway.
Well,
At least from the ape
just a quick correction there, Brett. You are an African ape. Just for a quick correction there.
Oh, you got any evidence for that?
Yeah, we have all the genetic evidence you could ever need for that.
I didn't realize you were a scientist. Are you a scientist? You've been in the lab?
Anyone hear that train going off the rails?
Exactly.
Is this Mr.
Are you a
Batman?
I think Brett's used to walk into a room where he can, just speak nonsense and get away with it. But you're not going to get away with that on Pangburn, unfortunately.
Your claim? Or are you just going to throw it out there, Mr. Pan?
Go to talkorigins.org and you're going to get all of the answers to your very basic questions about evolution by natural selection and why it's currently the best theory to help us understand how life came to be.
And what should I look on in there that's going to show me? Is it going to prove you're an ape?
It's it's going to tell you why we are in the ape classification and not in the plant classification or in the that we're not fish currently.
So you do believe at one point in time your ancestors were fish?
Well, you can sure. I mean, let's go as far as a nucleotide.
Okay, so what kind of fish were you exactly? Were you a goldfish?
We're not gonna go through your basic knowledge ignorance on this episode, Brett. All of this stuff can be Googled very simply. So I suggest you go do some research, and please don't teach your children, any of the, anti-scientific things that you seem to be espousing or alluding to. I would appreciate.
Well, apparently, if I'm going to teach my kids, I'm going to have to go to Google because I'm not getting nothing out of you.
Yeah, go ahead. Go to Google. I'm not here. I'm not on the clock to educate you personally when you come into this live show. Are you embarrassed yet?
I'm asking you who your ancestor is. You don't even know what kind of fish it is.
My ancestor is my great grandfather, James Pangburn, and then the lineage goes back. How far do you want to go? And I went straight to the nucleotide, the first self-replicating cell. Do you want to
You were also related to a rodent whenever it came up on land?
Yes, we actually have strong genetic evidence for that being the case. But anyways,
Could I add something here?
Yeah, I don't want to make it about what Brett wants to come here and talk about. Like, I really do want to stay on topic. So quickly, ZMO.
All right. I just wanted to point out the fact that, we can do experiments with SSRIs and coronaviruses and whatever on mice, and it miraculously translates into humans. So,
Yeah,
I don't think that's.
Yeah,
You've actually injected some mice to find that out.
Like, we can you guys, we can stay here and choose to educate Brett, but I don't really want to do that. But Brett, if you want to stick on topic and engage in the conversation, you're welcome here, and everyone from all kinds of worldviews are welcome in this channel. But I want to move from Brett. Brett gave his answer. I want to go to ZMO. ZMO, what does your life mean to you? And guys, try to get to the focus on the meaning, not necessarily whether there is an intrinsic purpose or not, because that's going to be very appealing to go
triggering.
There.
Yeah. Okay. I think Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, was a pretty rang true with me. It's not necessarily the question of what is my meaning of life, but more of my search for it, and to embrace the journey and not necessarily and moment by moment. I can go along the way, but just to talk about the book a little bit, his experience was that people who lost their meaning of life in Auschwitz and other camps would more often than not die off and lose hope. And I don't know if it was him or a colleague, had work. I think it might have been him. His logotherapy that he developed, his life work was at home, stashed away, and that provided him an incentive to drive forward. And so it's more about the journey. And for me personally,
well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because trauma and disorders like depression can actually eat at your biology and kill you, right? If it goes untreated, or if the trauma continues. So yeah, for sure. And sometimes a little bit
I was actually
go ahead.
I was actually just listening to a Sapolsky lecture about that, and he was talking about the mechanism that was triggered when we were chased by lions on the savannah is the exact same mechanism, anxiety mechanism, stress mechanism that's triggered when we worry about a 30-year mortgage. So, the stress response of 21st century peoples, like I was saying earlier, is predicated upon evolutionary thing that the evolution moves much, much slower than, say, Moore's law and technology. And that's why I think there's so much strife in the world with communications like Twitter and such, because we're not evolutionarily suited for that type of stuff.
Well, it's kind of interesting that now where humanity is, for the most part, fight or flight response in our body, in our brains, seem to be an adherence and not a feature. And some people will have disorders where their sympathetic nervous system is cranked up so high that their fight or flight response can be triggered by just the smallest things. And this might have been a very useful survival mechanism at some point, to have that high tuned sympathetic nervous system. But now we treat it with antidepressants and different things to people not live a panicked life.
Yeah, it's now just as much a bug opposed to a feature, if not more so a bug than a feature.
Right. How about you there, Chad? What does life mean to you? What does your life mean to you?
Yeah, so I take a little bit of a a very different approach than the poor guy that left. I forgot his name. I take
Brian.
heavily. Oh, Brian, there it is. Yeah, I take a real heavy inspiration from Albert Camus' absurdist point of view, where I don't believe that there is any inherent meaning in the universe, and it is that sort of search for humankind to gather some sort of existential meaning that is absurd, but that allows for a complete blank slate for you to apply and build your own foundational meaning from the ground up. So for me personally, I highly value in-group loyalty. So my family specifically, the people around me, the people that I can affect, I make sure that is as well established as possible. I attempt to constantly better myself and my outlook, whether that be through education, autodidactic research, whatever. And then from there, I attempt to better the surroundings. Just better the environment around me, to keep it concise. So
interesting. So and let's get to how that makes you feel, like improving the environment around you. What does that mean to you?
Oh, yeah. So it's an expression of my individual will into an absurd universe. If I can better the environment around me, those are direct and measurable effects that I have on something that's ultimately existentially meaningless, but very, very meaningful, and possibly the only thing that means to me and the people around me.
And why do you think those particular things mean something to you?
Oh, it is just a complete subjective framework. I think it's heavily influenced by biological necessity and I guess environmental circumstance. But at the end of the day, I recognize that I have to treat it as though it's subjective.
Right. Interesting. Archangel, you've been here a while. What have you come up with? What does your life mean to you? And the same questions I asked Chad there. Like when you do identify what those things are, why do you think those things mean something to you? Veracity, I'll get to you in a moment. If you could mute just in between, that would be great. And we might actually go to you right now, Veracity, instead of Archangel, because I think you might be AFK. Oh, Veracity ran.
My mic is better if you want to.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Dal. Yeah, I was interested to hear from you. Go ahead.
I forgot exactly where I was, but something along the lines of moral foundation is where I think people generally derive their meaning from, and I was going to try to tie it back into like creating thoughts that will go on to benefit other people. So if I can raise my children in such a way that they will have ideas that will go on to help people, or even if they're just nice people, or if I convince someone to go about living their life in such a way that allows others to form ideas that can go on to help people, or if they help people themselves. I think that's generally where I get my meaning from. If I can either help people or butterfly affect other people to help people.
And why is helping people meaningful to you?
Well, I think without the group, you couldn't have an individual, really. Just that's kind of the nature of the kind of creature we are. And so you kind of need to support the group in order to have a group that can support the individual in such a way that you can live a decent and non-suffering life. You can live the life you want to live.
Okay. Yeah, and on a more micro level, do you go through that thought process on a micro level, like day to day, or like if you see someone who has fallen over on the side of the street, how does it feel to help that person up?
I mostly well, it feels good to stop and help the person, and I will generally just react to my own like intuition, I guess. But as I'm helping people, I generally try to keep some parts of my moral foundation in my mind, like the fact that I might be extra careful with how I phrase the things I say to say, like if I'm helping a child with their schoolwork, I'll be extra careful to phrase things properly so that they can get a more close understanding to whatever it is they need to understand, so that when they teach someone else someday, they can teach it in that same sort of way.
And is
so
it still
I'll
worth
keep
it, even though you might be helping out the next serial rapist?
I think that is explicitly what makes it worth it, because if I can help that serial rapist in such a way that would prevent him from becoming that serial rapist, then I would that would be the most good that you could possibly do, is preventative measures, basically, where you just, by supporting people, encourage them to support each other instead of being selfish.
Cool. Archangel, are you with us again? Archangel, bring me a dream. Okay, well, I'll give my answer. I don't think there is any evidence. It's never been demonstrated that there is any intrinsic meaning, as far as I see. If someone wants to say, like, what is the purpose of a life form, or to be specific, a human life form? What is its purpose? Well, functionally, I think its purpose is to pursue pleasure. I think that's the engine that's running, the artist formerly known as consciousness, all of the things that emerge out of our mind. I think it's to pursue pleasure. And I think I can take that to mean, when I'm thinking about meaning in my own life, okay, well, if I want to really fundamentalize what's going on, I think every single thing I do is in the pursuit of pleasure. And I think I rolled on the deterministic causal chain of events. I rolled the dice that allows me to be morally consistent with the law of the land, with my own moral foundation. And I think I just got lucky with that. And some people roll different dice, like Ted Bundy, right? And their pleasure drive, their meaning for them is to perhaps engage in pleasurable pursuits that we would consider to be immoral. I would say most of us, or at least the law of the land would say as much. So I think fundamentally everyone's purpose, everyone's meaning can be fundamentalized or quantified down to simply as pleasure calculations. But I think after you get above that point and we get to the fundamental presuppositions that inform our moral foundations, like Dal was talking about, I think from there is where we really see the uniqueness of each of us play out when it comes to how we describe and how we feel about meaning and things that mean something to us. You know, one rock might not mean anything to us, but the other rock will be a rock we had since we were 3, right? And that means something. Well, why does it mean anything? Well, I have an experience attached to this rock. Well, why should an experience attached to a rock mean anything? Because I find it pleasurable, okay? It's like eventually you're going to get to the point where you just have to say, because I like it, okay? Because I like the feeling of my family. Because I like the idea of being one with the tree or one with the sun god or one with the thing. I like the idea of an afterlife. I like the idea of this, and that's why it means something to me. So I think fundamentally, when I hear people talk about meaning, I think it stems from their pleasure drive. But feel free, anyone who disagrees or has a different take, or, feel free to jump in.
It would seem to me that the outliers are more interesting in those scenarios because despite your pleasure drive, there may be other oughts that people play out that may not be in their best pleasureful interest. And so they either have to take it on faith, assume, or make really bad decisions, objectively bad, for something that would not be quantifiably understood. And so there's no evidence for why they might do that, or there's no reason that outside of some sort of order they can't describe. And so you can either say they're irrational beings like we all are and they're just doing stuff, or you can say they found purpose some other way to act outside of their own best self-interest in the situation.
And one thing I'll agree with you, Bruce, that the mechanism, the pleasure drive I'm talking about, can become defunct. It can become injured, malfunction. And we see this in clinical psychology that all of a sudden our biology seems to be working against our well-being, against pleasurable pursuits. Like it's not allowing us to pursue things that we wish we could, and I think that's a sign when something is going wrong with the mechanism. Something is interrupting the process. Dal, were you trying to get in there?
I mean, I was thinking about how the pleasure drive pertains to natural selection and my own ideas about how helping the group is naturally selected for in social species anyway because of our ability to help one another. Yeah. And so I could see a sort of self-reinforcing system, and whether you want to call it a pleasure drive or a evolved capacity for human relationship or whatever, I think that's I agree with that.
And my pleasure drive theory is falsifiable. If someone can come up with something, an example of where outside of a malfunctioning pleasure drive where pleasure was not the pursuit, they could falsify my theory. And that will be the challenge for people when I do publish my book. I will be interested to see who can falsify my theory. But
what about self-immolation because of religious beliefs?
Well,
because that might not classify as a malfunction because it is a direct result of their, well thought out religious suppositions.
Yeah, I would say that you wouldn't believe that, or you wouldn't be engaging in that if you weren't doing it for the pleasure of doing so. I think
the pleasure of lighting yourself on fire.
Well, in the case, at least in my point of view, what the pleasure drive is that when somebody self-immolates, when a person actually chooses to do it themselves and not having it done upon them, you have their pleasure drive, which is, God will appreciate, or that, I will get will appreciate my sacrifice so much, something will be done about this. And it goes beyond the needs of his own into the group. And so that person has more pleasure helping the people around him, truly believing that his God will take whatever it is a part of him and, share it down and give him like a form of a blessing or like a saving grace or something like that.
And one thing I will say is that our ability to make pleasure investments is a thing that long-term pleasure investments is a thing that really separates us from many other species on this planet. Like you brought up ZMO the mortgage, the long-term mortgage, because one day you will own that piece of property. I see this as the very same type of pleasurable pursuit, even though during that time while you're paying off that mortgage, you may come into some very unpleasurable circumstances financially.
That's it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept. Talking about the self-immolation as an example. Like if you remember, I won't even attempt to pronounce his name, but one of the Buddhist monks in Vietnam that kind of created the very famous photo of him sitting there, quote unquote, peacefully as he's literally burning to death.
Right.
That ultimately can still be described as a pursuit of pleasure. Pleasure not in the colloquial sense as in it feels good. Obviously, that's not true. But pleasure in the sense of I am serving a higher purpose and attempting to, I guess, invest whatever.
That's a good point because, and it's important that to distinguish between the colloquial usage of pleasure, like, oh yeah, I got so much pleasure in my junk center from that chick last night. But then, but when I use the term pleasure, I'm using it the same way that neuroscientists will talk about, pleasure centers or, pleasurable emergences or describe pleasurable emergences in the brain.
Yeah, you're talking about it from like a neurochemical level, not a. Pleasure as in dopamine and serotonin and all the chemicals that make your brain function, not pleasure as in feeling a certain way.
I'd like to jump to Scott. Scott, question of the day. What does your life mean to you?
Is he in here still?
Yeah, I think Scott's still here. Or Archangel if you're back. Ark or Scott.
Yeah, there he is. Okay.
He's muted.
Oh yeah, he's muted. So I don't know where our friend what was his name in the chat here? God TV Radio live show by Brett Keane. Shout out to Brett Keane and his God TV Radio live show.
That's why. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I was wondering why it just was so directed.
Are you a scientist?
He sounds like this guy named Mr. Batman that's on that goes through a lot of these things. Might have been him.
That guy's
when you cut out Pangburn and you were off air, he asked the question, and I just immediately started going into a Mr. Batman impression, and then I realized Bruce is here, and I was like, okay, I shouldn't be a dick because
I was going to say Bruce is able to talk circles around the guy.
But Bruce doesn't engage in those in that
the silly,
in that fallacious, unhelpful, bad faith approach to discourse. And I've had,
he won't interrupt you.
I will say something about Batman. I have had some good conversations with Batman, and he's been, for the most part, in my experience with him, a good faith interlocutor. I would say that he's full of ignorance and perceived stupidity from my side, but most of the part good faith. But I won't say the same for that Darth Dawkins guy.
What is isn't that name Brett Keane isn't actually him, right?
Brett Keane. Yeah, I don't know if it actually is him. I'm not sure.
I'll look it up. See if it's some serial killer.
But Scott,
it's hard to say because sometimes apologists are attacked, and people will throw phony pages up about them on the internet. People just don't like them,
right?
And so you'll see when someone's not popular enough to have their own algorithm, they'll people will create something else about them that's phony info, and then it'll become. Anyway, that's another issue.
That is true, though.
I mean,
I've heard so many.
Find it. Yeah, it's very I find it interesting. The same sort of religious zealotry that people seem to despise among fundamentalists occurs often on those that would claim to be skeptics or atheists. It's very Well, it's very sad, I guess, because if their meaningful pursuit were truly not religious, then they wouldn't engage in such behaviors. But it seems that although people tend to dispense with what they would consider faith-based actions, occurs all the time, without evidence or even thinking through the consequences or even admitting that they're acting upon no evidence. People engage in this all the time, and the difference is like whether someone's willing to say I don't know, or if someone else is willing to say, I definitely know. But I don't really like the flinging of poo that seems to occur, across those lines. Especially like from Christians' perspective, I don't really understand. I understand it, but like engaging with others when they haven't engaged with you, is a waste of time, and I think largely stupid.
Yeah, this is why I want to get Ray Comfort on here so bad, because I would love to pick his brain and see exactly what motivates his spreading of the gospel.
His spreading of the gospel is a obligation through what he would be considered the Great Commission.
For sure. No, I understand, but I'd want to hear it
that's
from
his
him.
motivation.
Like I said, I've been around the Bible Belt my entire life. I mean, I've watched enough Living Waters to know. But yeah, it'd be interesting to hear people converse, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be the same as you see on his live or Man on the Street stuff. I think he'd be fairly consistent.
Yeah, no, it's super neat.
I just want to quickly go to Archangel. He's got about 15 minutes. Arc, what does your life mean to you?
It sounds like it's kind of multi-layered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how to answer it. It means everything, but what exactly that entails, I don't really know how to say.
How about like if your sibling or family member does something that they achieve something, what does that mean to you to see them achieve something?
I really don't know. Don't know how to answer the question at all, really. Just a complete blank, really.
Right.
I don't know how did everyone else answer the question?
Well, I was gonna pose a question. Do you have any sort of like core morals or core beliefs, things that you feel are right or good?
I suppose so. I don't know if that's exactly where the meaning would come from. It's more just living a good life. I don't really know what to say. I was just tuning in to listen.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm lagging hard. Damn.
Yeah, someone's lagging.
I was almost answered the exact same way that Archangel did, except I started I've been looking into Plato more and more lately and Platonism, and I started thinking about the concept of good being extrapolated to its purest form and all possible views of what could be good, and then I realized that that's just like a reverse way of talking about my moral foundation. And so I kind of took the question and went about explaining my moral foundation and why I have it, and that was as close as I think I can get to answering the question of what meaning does your life have.
I suppose identifying the values that you hold as good, and then just working towards getting better at that and being more consistent with that.
I mean, that sounds like a solid foundation for sure. That's kind of similar to what a couple of us have said. Yeah, like I'm a huge fan of. Go
ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I guess to give any extra insight, in absurdism, right? So I don't believe anything has any inherent meaning. However, that leaves a blank slate on which I can create whatever meaning I want, whether that be through like biological predisposition, environmental circumstances, or just my own subjective, application of meaning. That's still just as valid. So, yeah.
I agree. Life is definitely absurd, and but what specifically? I mean, I find that an interesting answer. People talk about existentialist or moral foundation, or objective or subjective. What led you to the specific word or way of thinking absurdism? Is it just self-evident to you that the universe is structured that way from a young kid, or what?
Well, no, it actually it started from the I guess pursuit to find some sort of objective morality. Because, like I said, I grew up in the Bible Belt. I was always told that the biblical teachings of God's Word are objectively moral, and those are correct in every circumstance. Well, eventually, just through many years, lost the faith and started researching into, well, are there any objective? I ever found anything that I couldn't, I guess, have someone justify to me. And then I started getting into, I guess, a more nihilistic worldview where it makes more sense to say that nobody has proven any objective meaning. It's always tinged in some sort of subjectivity. And nihilism tends to be, I guess, a little bit of an impractical and unscalable philosophy. And then I read about Albert Camus and how he kind of, as a bit of a backlash to nihilism, kind of expanded upon that idea and brought about the concept of the absurd. And it is just the description that the universe has no inherent meaning, so you presuppose, and then you say, well, if it has no meaning, it's absurd and kind of darkly ironic that people are constantly attempting to find meaning. Well, that is the absurd. So when you confront that, recognize that, and live your best life in whatever way that you are able to morally justify, then that is confronting the absurd and doing your best. So that's so far been one of the newer philosophies that I've taken quite a liking to. And that's super intense.
I was always a big fan of absurdism because it kind of took that, like, Edgar Allan Poe. It took the emo out of nihilism, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's the Chad's version of an active nihilist, I'd say, because there's the differentiation between passive nihilism, where that's that kind of emo doomer, everything is worthless, nothing means anything, so I shouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And takes active nihilism, which is like, nothing means anything, so I should probably do something about it, but ultimately, whatever. And takes it a step further and says that, no, you should derive meaning specifically to confront the absurd, because why not? And it's
Yeah, I was.
I guess my take on this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Del.
I was just going to mention that briefly that I considered myself an absurdist for most of my life, I think. But that was all I was going to mention. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'll just throw my Richard, you're making a lot of noise, man.
Sorry. Yep.
I was just going to throw I mean, I guess this may not go well in here, but I'll just throw my perspective in on that, which is I just find that it's a way around metaphysics. I think it's a way of like dismissing what has no evidence, because that's the only way that people that are evidence-based objectivists or materialists or people in that require evidence for all claims, it just seems a way for them to get around the metaphysical ideas that me and many people in my camp hold. So it's like it also seems like in the same way that there's been a few pivots around over the years, or around like what people might consider to be atheism or agnosticism or Gnosticism, where it's sort of like evolved in such a way that you're able to have the conversation without having to appeal to any metaphysic at all. At least that's how it seems to me.
I mean, I'm intrigued by that. What do you, I guess, as evidence in opposition, what would you say is the meaning of life? I guess, where do you derive that?
Well, I'm saying that there are certain things that there are justifications I hold that everyone holds without belief. They either choose to accept that it's possibly metaphysical, or they choose to accept that we don't know anything, so it's or it's unexplainable absurdism, which is just kind of, in my opinion, I don't see the distinction between that and metaphysics. I don't see the distinction in that and higher authority. Because in other words, you just appeal to what you don't know, but it sort of says, let's appeal to what we don't know, call it absurd, and that sort of encompasses all the pieces of metaphysics that people might ascribe those things to.
I guess I don't.
What about?
Oh, go ahead.
What about people who would say that even if you discovered every single fact about what we call absurd, or every single fact that, if we could measure love and understand gravity 100% and all this stuff, even if we discovered all that, what would you say to people that would say, that would still be absurd? And even if we confront all that and know all about that, that's not obfuscating it necessarily, but just acknowledging that even though we don't, you know what I mean? That even though we can't, that if we could explain it all, it still would not make it absurd, right?
Hey, before anyone jumps on that, can someone paint out a general idea of what absurdism actually is? Because I've never actually heard a definition before.
Oh,
that's a really good
point. I can do that. So when we're talking about absurdism and the idea of the absurd, it is a little bit different than the colloquial definition again. The absurd is the tension between the seeming fact that the universe has no inherent meaning and provable meaning, and humanity's predilection to try to create and ascribe meaning. Everyone is searching for some meaning of life, right? But ultimately, it seems as though there is none. And that tension between those two seemingly oppositional facts is the absurd, according to Camus.
Okay. So, I guess that leads into one of the confusions I have about the way meaning has been discussed here, because a few times people have said the phrase, there is no inherent meaning to life or the universe or etc. But by the definition of meaning, is it possible for anything ever to have meaning in and of itself?
I mean, that's part of the absurd. I would argue no. There is no possible way that anything can have inherent meaning. But I'm sure someone else would say something different, and it'll depend on the person.
So ultimately, things like metaphysical claims that aren't measured. I don't know if this would be considered metaphysical, but just a concept like love. At the end of the day, you believe there can be no inherent meaning derived from such emotions, I guess, because they're not observable scientifically.
Well,
not necessarily.
Well, I was gonna say it depends. So, if you're looking at love the way that we see love today, it's just a mixture of a couple of chemicals inside of your brain that activate when either you seek copulation, you have repeated copulation with somebody, and yeah, exactly, all that shit. Well, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine combined together at a certain amount makes whatever we consider love happen inside of our brains. Those specific three combined in the kind of weird fucking cocktail. But is it if you look at it that way, if you look at love through a chemical way, that's that's how we can ascribe love to things. It's when we spend a lot of time invested in something and we care for it, and it turns into something that gives us pleasure and it makes us relaxed, and it keeps us together. And you could say that that's something that you love. It's something that
Right.
And at the end of the day, at least again, this is just speaking from my point of view. Anything that we have, no matter how dearly we hold it, it's difficult to say that there is a provable thing that gives it meaning. Like I would say, like loyalty, right, is a virtue that I find inherently, or no, that I find meaningful. It is something that I base my life around. But you can ultimately just consistently ask, well, why is that important? Well, it does X, Y, Z. It helps people together. Okay, well, why is that ultimately moral? Or why is that ultimately this? And then at the end of the day, you will reach a wall that doesn't allow for further explanation. So until someone is able to somehow objectively prove that this moral concept is inherently meaningful in and of itself, I don't see the reason why we should accept it.
Well, yeah. Then from that, you kind of run into problem postmodernism, which argues that everything is dependent on something else, right? So the meaning of object is informed by a thing related to it, and then you get an infinite regress problem. Or you just say it's possible, and maybe this is maybe this is the case, that you don't need a formal cause per se for meaning to be interdependent between things. It sort of just works as an interconnected web. And that sort of removes any hope of finding a sort of inherent or objective meaning in any one thing, right?
Right. And I think a problem, absolutely. I think some people could argue that, and I don't think you're arguing for this, Chad, that it's inherently good, because like you said, nothing could be good about, anything really. At the end of the day, the absurdist point of view or the postmodernist point of view. But, some would argue, interpretation, right? Interpretation is informed by social factors and all these other things. At the end of the day, your subjectivity is, like, people said, infinitely regressible, and you're wearing rose-tinted glasses or whatever the case may be. And so everything is open to interpretation. But some people would argue that not everything is or should open it to infinite interpretations. That and the reason I bring that up is to people that would say that maybe that would be a more problematic worldview, because it really, leaves you lost in a sea of moral relativism sometimes. And, it might be better to be grounded in, something like God or something like that. Just raising some other side of the coin, why people would argue that is problematic.
I'd like to, we got some new people in the room here. I'd like to check in with Scott. Scott, what does your life mean to you?
Let me plug in my headset. Give me one sec here.
Yeah, sure. And Siri, same question to you. We'll come to you just after Scott. What does your life mean to you? And anyone else who hasn't answered. And then we'll, when each individual gives their take, feel free, guys, to ask some questions about it or make some points.
Yeah, I mean, overall, GMO, I think, it's you got a good analysis and a good, counter example, and it gets into some almost Petersonian argumentation that I at least would base my life around, and we can get into that later. I will have to jump off and go dark for a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Perfect timing.
I cannot hear you guys.
Check one,
Let me
two.
restart.
Yeah. Rejoin.
Discord.
Yeah, I'll be listening in to the chat. So
Kyrie or Siri, what does your life mean to you? We can also go to Jimmy if Siri's not ready. How about you, Jimmy? How would you answer that question? Hypno, welcome.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Hypno, question for you. What does your life mean to you?
Not much at all.
Okay. Can
I
you
don't know how
elaborate a
else to
little bit?
put it. I don't think that human life intrinsically has value. I don't think my life has value. I would be willing to get rid of it for minimal gain to others. Oh, everything. I mean, it's the moment, you know. Very present-based mindset I have, I guess. So when I'm in the moment, I mean, yeah, it means a lot. But when I'm not, nothing means anything. I could care less. No. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I'd say I'm sort of in the same boat where, like what I see, what's meaningful to me, I guess, or the meaning of my life is doing the things that I enjoy doing, whether that's spending time with my, daughter or working on music, stuff like that. As a greater sense for just human beings in general, I think probably the greatest meaning in life is just to have, to procreate.
What was that last part there?
Is to procreate, to continue the cycle going.
Okay.
Is it directed at me?
No, I was just checking in with Scott. Now, Scott, when you do see your daughter do something that they succeed at something, they do something that brings them joy, what does that mean to you?
That brings me joy as well,
Okay.
Seeing somebody that you care about excel or succeed,
so
makes you feel good.
And a
Same
way of
thing if
talking
they
about that
fail.
would be that means joy to you.
Yeah.
Like if we're invoking the idea of meaning, like that means joy to me. That means, let's say happiness to me,
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess in that sense, you could probably say, with this specific question, I'm probably more of a, it's not Epicureanism. It's, hedonism.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the sense of like where people think, oh, you're just having sex with everybody, and like hedonism doesn't necessarily mean that. Hedonism also means like enjoying good food and good music, and that the good life is that's what the purpose is,
for the sake of it being good.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's try Ardbeg. What does your life mean to you?
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
What does my life mean to me?
Yeah.
In what regards, I guess, since I just showed up?
Well, let's think of some things that mean something to you, like your like maybe some family members, and when they when you see other family members do something and succeed at something and find joy in something, what does that mean to you to experience that?
When I see others find meaning?
Sure. Well, when you see others like enjoy something, like let's say, do you have kids?
Yeah, I have kids.
Yeah. So if your kids, they solve something or they do something that they are proud of and they cheer with joy, what does that mean to you?
What does that mean to you?
Does it make you feel like you have meaning?
Does it mean anything to you?
I don't. It seems a bit of a weird question.
It is.
I mean, I find meaning. I think being a parent, that has lots of entailments, emotional satisfaction, as well as frustrations. So, I find meaning in hobbies. So meaning is tied to enjoyment, sense of using my skills and talents in a way that's either beneficial to my own enjoyment or for the enjoyment or help of others.
Okay, cool.
So that sounds more like dictionary definitions than it. So, but I guess since I don't know how long this discussion's been going. I guess in regards to into what are we contrasting this against something else, or is it just purely
we're just checking
what gives
in
us meaning?
on what meaning means to each of us.
What meaning means. Okay.
Richard, I haven't given you a shot yet. Thanks, Ardbeg.
Yep.
Richard, how would you answer this question?
Yeah, what does life mean?
Well, what does life mean to you?
Yeah. Well, I think I find a lot of meaning in the things I enjoy, like a lot of people have said here. The sports I play, the people I call my friends, and my family, my interests, things like this. And I think I certainly derive meaning from those. I also, similar to Bruce, derive meaning, an additional layer of meaning by nesting those within the framework of Christianity and participating in those things in relation to a God which I believe exists. And so that's what I would say. I find life to mean for me.
Anyone else have any feedback on that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this is feedback to what I've heard several people say, including you, Pangburn, in the past. I think everybody that spoke, past 3 or 4 people, have mentioned meaning that. Oh no! Damn it. Shut up. Meaning in interpersonal relationships. So, the things you enjoy with other people, family, friends. I keep hearing that over and over. I was thinking of this thing, paradoxically, when you're searching for meaning, often of the time, it can be very painful, if you're doing self-introspection or what have you. But on the other end of the stick, when you're kind of in the moment and not searching for meaning, like I've heard another person say, you find the most enjoyment in it, when you're just quote unquote in the moment. And, I kind of like giving ideas names, and I like Eric Weinstein for that reason. He gives ideas all kinds of different little names. And I was thinking of this idea, the positive personal node network. So the idea would be every person in the world is a node, and for better or less terminology. And, it kind of goes back to the idea that you can either leave this world with more positive energy and love and compassion and be less jealous, or you could, you could leave it better, or you could leave it worse, much worse in some people's cases, and much better in some people's cases. So, and one other thing that I've been keep remembering for some reason is I remember a while back, maybe 10 years ago, or I don't know when I heard it necessarily, but it was talking about the happiest countries in the world, the happiest countries in the world. And I know this is a problematic test. People like North Korea, they can report they're happy just because, they're scared of repercussions. But I thought the answer was pretty good. They said Bhutan, the country, above India and the Himalayas, and they have a very strong family unit. They place a ton of emphasis on community and, kind of doing good deeds to others. And yeah, so that's kind of what I have to say. One more thing you were saying earlier, Pangburn, that like at the end of the day, you kind of have to say, I like this because I like it. Why are boobs good? Why is a rainbow good? It just is to me. You know what I mean? And you can't really. Some people can ground it in certain things, or why is God good? But at the end of the day, for a lot of people, especially from what I've heard in this chat, it's where they find the meaning. Especially with interpersonal connection.
I do want to say Anton was trying to get a word in here.
I just saw that message. Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Anton.
I'm beyond God or Jesus or Allah or Hebrew prophets of peace like Muhammad's sweet little daughter Fatima in Quranic speech, or Imam Ali ibn Abd Salib, or Islamic Tawhid, or Mahatma Gandhi, or deep Upanishadic feats, the Mahabharata or the Bhagavad Gita, or Ra from Egypt's theology of Atum, Hermes, and Thoth.
Did he say Vegeta?
Is that a freestyle, man? Making the Jews. It was nice.
He did say Vegeta.
Is that a freestyle off the top?
Upanishad?
Who knows what that was?
Sounds like a playback or something, but it was funny.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was him just waiting to get his freestyle that he's been working on in. Or
I thought we were going to get a rap or something.
I think it was. It was just a bunch of old religious words we don't know. Upanishads was in there.
He said, "Everyone, let me get it out. Everyone, be silent for 5 minutes. It's important to the topic. I'm serious."
5.
Anton, I'm gonna unserver mute you, but I want to hear from you, brother or sister. Okay.
Server mute.
You're live now.
Feats the Mahabharata or the Bhagavad Gita, or Ra from Egypt's theology of Atum, Hermes, and Thoth, receiving anagogic retreats of Platonic readings of geometry, or doctrines from Chaldean prophecies. When the car is released epiphodically beyond the scene of trauma and grief, squalor and weakness, thought to be all a dream, but not to the Greek Aristotle, who seemed to want to reach Eudaimonia's needs. Augustine's Monarchianism, Guinan and evil of the fall from Eve, who was deceived, let off to eat what was not to be, gnawed by the teeth. It birthed consciousness, seeing, concepts, and reason, the all in.
I don't really want to get a strike on the video in case it's copyrighted material. Interesting.
I want to. If that is a video, I want to get the link.
Yeah, Anton, drop the link in the text.
Shit's hard.
I don't know.
Let's go. You see most new anthem.
He can't hear us over that video right now.
Yeah. So drop it, Anton, and then we'll all have a listen. We're not gonna do it on the air though. Let's ask Amy. Amy, what does your life mean to you?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, praise Jesus.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know. I was just gonna like do some dishes and shit.
I know, but can I ask you just to help out a little bit? Can I say, or like, when you see your kids enjoying life, what does that mean to you?
I don't think we have to define or attribute meaning to an experience. Can it just be?
Well, if I ask you colloquially, like, what are the things that mean something to you in your life? Would you
Are you asking me about my values?
Well, no, I'm asking, like, I'm not going to change the term. We're talking about mean and meaning today. So, what are some things that mean something to you? Like your favorite pencil?
Or are meaningful to you?
Favorite color? Favorite color? Food?
Yeah. Whatever you want.
Dishes.
Yeah, I don't know if I know how to answer that. And I know that's weird. But I'm weird like that.
Do your kids mean something to you? Like, do your kids mean love to you, or do they mean joy to you, or do they?
No.
What do they mean?
I value them, but they don't mean anything to me.
Ooh.
Like they're valuable.
Don't say too loud.
My kids don't mean anything to me.
No, I don't.
Well, think about the colloquial.
I asked. Hang on. I asked if you are asking about value because.
No, I'm not. I'm asking about meaning. What is meaningful in your life?
What could my kids possibly mean to me? What could they?
They could mean love.
They don't know.
They can mean love to you, like, and that's why I gave you an example. Like when your kids succeed at something and they express a bunch of joy, what does that moment mean to you?
It doesn't.
It doesn't mean anything to you.
I don't feel like there's any reason to ascribe meaning to a moment.
What if we use a different word that's kind of synonymous with meaning, but maybe doesn't have the I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not
loaded
trying
terminology.
To be difficult. I'm really not trying to be
Well,
difficult.
no, I don't want to change. I don't want to change the word.
Asperger's.
I want to know what meaning means to Amy.
Well, okay, that's a different question. What does meaning mean?
No,
I guess.
Well, it's not a different question. We will derive answers from how you answer this, but.
Well, I guess I try to avoid. I guess I try to remain open to like I will challenge myself in an experience, and I will ask myself what meaning am I giving to this experience that happened, because we tend to make up a meaning, we tend to derive meaning, we tend to apply meaning to something, and I think that that's false or inaccurate. And I think that we derive meaning from an experience, or we place meaning upon it, and then from there are maybe expectations, or we cling to it, or it's just, this comes back to my talking about like being present. And can you just be present in a moment of joy with your children? And can you just experience joy? Why do we have to conceptualize and make that mean something? I try not to do that.
Does your health mean something to you?
In the way that you're asking, no.
So it doesn't.
I think you're asking
so it doesn't
about value.
mean like longevity. Like it doesn't mean being
What
able
could
to
it
be there
mean?
for your kids.
How does health mean being able to be there for my kids?
Well, because if you get too unhealthy, you could die, right?
Okay, so I value my health. I value my health, but that doesn't mean anything. I don't know if I'm.
Amy, can I ask, what's the difference between value and meaning in your opinion?
Meaning, I guess it makes a thing into something that it isn't.
Well, because I think we're sort of
my
bouncing.
children's joy, can it not just be joy? And can health? I
Well,
can value health.
But
I can value it.
But if something triggers an emotional response to you, do you not think it means something? Do you?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. Is I will confront myself and I will ask myself, what meaning am I attributing to this emotion? What story am I telling myself about this? And I'll challenge that and I'll question that, because frankly, it's usually pretty damn inaccurate, right? Like, if we're honest with ourselves, we make shit up in our heads. We ascribe meaning to something that really, it just is. It's an emotion. How does it mean anything? And when we decide that it means something,
here's
that's
another.
That we fail.
Do you look at art, Amy, ever, or you listen to music, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So think of some of your favorite songs. What do some of your favorite songs mean to you?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think of them that way, and maybe that's why I'm weird. I'm really being like as honest as I can be.
I think that was the problem I was having with the question as well. But basically, I thought of a phrase as you were talking, and then you actually said it, which is like the story we tell ourselves, right? Whether we put judgment on that story being good, bad, false, true, maybe that's what meaning is just the story we tell ourselves about whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that's a perversion of the experience.
Well, we're also bouncing between sort of two uses of the word meaning, because you can say, what does a word mean? So, like, what does
a definition?
But we also use it in a different way. Like, I listened to Brahms for the first time on last week. I listened to his first piano concerto, and either the second or third movement, the slow movement, was so utterly meaningful to me that I would call it profound. Now, if I were to say or ask, what does Brahms' second piano concerto mean? That's a different use of the word meaning. And so the question that you're raising, Amy, is, what do I do with the fact that I call that movement meaningful? Like, from an existential sense, from an experiential sense, from a propositional sense. Like, what am I supposed to do with that which I call meaningful?
And if someone asked, what did that piece of music mean to you, how would you answer that?
I have no idea.
Okay, same. I mean,
how about it?
Welcome to the struggle.
It meant.
I would guess that in a very precious time with your children, like, for example, I would imagine seeing your child walk for the first time. That's a deeply meaningful thing to you.
In fact, I think, Amy, I'm pretty sure I've heard you state this exact quote, that communication in a relationship means a lot to you.
No, communication is no.
I'm pretty sure you said that.
No, I
She said the opposite, because I hold her position and she went totally against it. And I was
communication is not the problem. Communication is not the problem.
But there was something you said about that
okay.
means a lot to you.
Okay, so I guess maybe you're asking me what's meaningful, and I'm trying to do so. So you guys are okay with someone saying that a piece of music was meaningful, even though they can't tell you what that means to them? Is that kind of the essence of the question?
Well, the what we're supposed to do in this exercise is try to, because the reason why I picked this topic today, because people tend to not look at meaning and what things mean something to them, and there's a reason why people stumble with this. And it's to
Yeah.
look
Well,
at
let me
it's
ask
to
you.
look at the things in your life that if someone colloquially came up to you and asked, Amy, do your kids even mean anything to you? Like you probably would have an answer as to what your kids mean to you. Like
No, I
your
would
kids
ask them what
mean
I would
a
ask them.
sense
What
of
do they mean by that
a
question?
sense of something to you. Like, do your kids mean a sense of family to you? Do your kids mean a
No,
sense of
no, I don't.
fun to you?
I don't categorize like that. Honestly, like if someone asked me that, just like I responded to you with
question,
what like what do you
Amy,
mean by that?
The
I
question
don't.
is not whether you do. The point is to engage in the topic.
Yeah,
to
but I
engage
think
with meaning.
But I don't. Why?
Because that's
Yeah.
the topic of today's discussion.
Okay, but I don't think that would do anything for me to like my kids for my kids to mean something that isn't my kids. I don't think that's
Amy, would it mean
I
something
wouldn't
to
pursue
you if
that.
your child died?
What could it mean to me? What does
That's a
music
question
mean
for
to
you.
you?
It would mean
No,
it would
let's-
mean sadness.
Yeah, would it
Okay.
not mean
No, it
sadness
doesn't.
and
No, it doesn't.
really?
I'm being honest. It would not mean sadness. It would provoke sadness, but it wouldn't mean sadness. I don't think it's a wise thing to do. That's just
Do you
me.
think
but-
value? Well, what about the thing that what if something, like you have a song that you like, but then if you might have lost your virginity to a certain song, the value you subscribe to the song gives it more. And I know you're going to maybe reject this word, but meaning to you. And thus, in the value hierarchy of songs, you look at this as it might invoke a memory.
That's a great example
and
of Jimmy, how that song would mean one thing to someone else, but mean something different to Amy because she lost her virginity to that song. That's
To me, it sounds like Amy
that-
just saying she's a nihilist, right? In the most direct sense of the term, the most direct sense is nihilism suggests that life is without objective meaning, right?
So yeah, but but that's avoiding. If she is saying that, she's not dealing with the question because we're not asking. We're asking whether you believe in subjective or objective meaning. Tell us what that meaning is, or what does your life mean to you, or give us some examples of things that mean something to you. Like and the song example Jimmy brought up is a really good example because it's like if someone's if someone found their dad who had just committed suicide and the song by Bob Seger, Hollywood Nights, was playing on the radio as you found your dad dead, that song's going to mean something different to you than it does to me, because I like to turn it on when I like to party.
Okay, so can you not say that song triggers something different in me than it triggers in you?
No, we're not going to run away from we're not going to run away from meaning, because meaning has practical value.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the triggering itself lends more credence to the fact that it has to mean something. Everything cannot mean
Am I the
nothing
only person who can't
at
answer
all
this?
times, in my opinion.
Well,
I mean,
why I could see why meaning would be like country to what Trav claimed, that meaning is not a good concept given a certain world. So if you could ultimately chalk or if you would like only speak in terms which are cause and effect, then meaning is something that encapsulates an emergent property out of cause and effect. Maybe I'm not sure about that definition, but what song triggers me the memories I have, you can trace that back to cause and effect, and then you don't need this idea of meaning anymore because you have all of the knowledge you need about why that song is affecting you in that way, and you can make decisions based off of that knowledge.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, this is really actually interesting. Like, I'm kind of a little bit spooked. Like, hold up a second. Is this my problem? Because, like, I am different. I'm different, and I ADHD. Yeah, I'm that. But maybe I'm autistic. Like, I kind of think I'm autistic. And because I'm genuinely not relating to the word meaning with those things. I'm not avoiding answering. I really don't conceptualize events like that. And maybe most people do that. Maybe that's why they think I'm weird. I don't know if that's good or bad, but and I didn't hear anyone else's answer. I turned it on, I muted my mic, and then I heard my name. And so I'm walking into this. I have no idea what other people described. And maybe that was meant to be, because I believe in that weird stuff. But I'm going to have to think about this, or maybe in listening to other people describe what things mean to them, might help me. But
one more thing. One more thing we can think of too is if you have an important family heirloom, like something a dead grandmother or a dead relative or a family member gave to you that's of high importance, but it's not necessarily something that has like a high monetary value. Like it might have been a little rock seashell necklace that you made with your, and I'm not saying you have a mother who has died, but someone who has a mother who has died who gave it to them. To another, it might seem like just, a crappy seashell necklace. But to the person who knows what its meaning is, at least to them, they hold it to great importance because of what it means, not what it's objectively worth, but because of what it means to them.
Yeah, but isn't that value?
Yeah, you can. It's one.
I suppose
you can say that thing has value, but then you ask the question. Okay, it has value. Now, what does that thing mean to me? Like if you were to write down as an exercise on a piece of paper, and it says, "What does that necklace mean to you?" What are some of the things you would write down?
Yeah, I would struggle with that. I struggle with questions that people ask me like this, and I can't answer
questions
them.
are difficult, by the way, Amy. It's not just like anything to do with autism or anything.
But what if it's true that I don't have? What if, like, can it be okay that I can't articulate a meaning?
I would say that it might allude to a place where you may want to clarify your mind, because I would say based on how you've reacted to the term meaning itself and what things mean, there might based on how everyone else has answered so far, there was one other guy who had who said he agreed with you and kind of had a hard time answering. He eventually got some stuff out, but it was not easy for him.
Well, okay, so a necklace, you would want me to, because I do hold on to things that remind me of something, but I don't think, why does it have to mean something? Why is it important for me to?
I don't think it has to. I don't think it has to.
Do they symbolize something for you? Like, do you tie memories to those objects?
Well, right. And that's where, likely so, yes. I wouldn't, and that's just what I wouldn't call meaning. I wouldn't use that word. And maybe that's just the struggle. And you guys try to ask me in different ways, but I don't perceive it, that I don't assign it meaning, like it'll remind me of something for sure that, I hold on to everything because it reminds me of things, and maybe because my memory sucks. I am a hoarder, and they remind me of an experience, but I don't think that I make a meaning out of it other than what it's reminding me of. The story that it tells me is just the story about that object, and maybe that's an autistic thing, maybe it's not.
How would you define
Am I
meaning?
still on?
If that, or am I not being heard?
Well,
no, I can hear you.
Yeah, you're
no, I had
yeah.
an alarm go off, and so my sound went out. But how would I define meaning?
Yeah.
Well, I tried to do that a little bit ago, but I guess the way that I feel like I'm being asked is I'm being asked to take an experience and extrapolate it into, take a story and come to a conclusion about it, maybe, or define it. Because if something means something, then it's defined, right? Like, be it a word in the dictionary, and then yes, you can say that. I think when people say that means something to me, I think they're talking about I find that valuable. I think that's a synonym for finding something valuable.
But you would more take meaning to.
Amy, if it's a
well, hold on,
synonym-
because I think
Go ahead.
I don't want you guys to talk past each other.
Yeah.
You would define meaning as like the definition, essentially. You would, like, if someone asks you what your kids mean to you, you'd be like, well, my kids are my biological descendants that carry my genetics and blah blah blah. But if they were to ask you, like, what do your kids represent, or something along those lines, you might give more of you might talk about the love you have for them, or something else. Maybe I'm way off the mark.
But an important thing, Dallas, Amy just said that meaning and
synonym
is a synonym to what, Amy?
Value.
To value. So, but you seem to have a different relationship with those two labels because you're willing to use one and not the other.
So if the relationship implies that, if you think they're synonymous, but then treat them as different, then that would.
Okay. I thought she was.
And that would mean that. Yeah, then that would mean that you don't really think they're synonymous.
Keith Connolly
And
has
I
a
hate to use the word
question
mean, but
for Amy on YouTube. It says, I'm curious if any memories invoke any emotions to Amy.
Yes.
Okay, she says yes.
Yeah. The reason I was trying to ask what I did was because I thought Amy was defining, like, she was talking about how we were defining meaning in this instance, rather than how she personally defines meaning.
Yeah,
well,
I caught the tail end of that, and I think it was GMO who alluded to it. But if meaning is, or if a byproduct of meaning is that you condense whatever you're ascribing meaning to into one singular thing or definition.
Yeah, I don't do that.
I think that's necessary for action. And so if you're going to base an action off of an event or some other thing, you're implicitly acting out a meaning that you
Can someone give me an example? Like, what's an example?
I have a good example. If you have no meaning of anything, if you're watching TV and there's an Amber Alert and it says watch out for a white Jeep, and you see a white Jeep go by, and then you go into the kitchen and you tell whoever that they should go buy some Breyers cookie dough ice cream, that would be inherently illogical because you therefore are not subscribing meaning to a very important event that could cause the death of a innocent person. So that'd be a good example in my mind.
Yeah, like you're acting out that you don't ascribe meaning to the Amber Alert. I don't think that's the best example, but like, let's say going back to your children, like, because I brought up the event
Well,
of
that is an Amber Alert. That's kind of why I used it actually. So.
yeah, like if you were going back to like the time where you saw one of your children walk for the first time, like the experience you have in that moment is going to inform how you act towards your children, and so you may, because of that moment, contribute more to their development. You may even exclaim in joy because of that event. You may treasure it in your heart. I think that those things are um, are are informed by an implicit ascribing of meaning to that experience.
Yeah, I don't.
Like it means like seeing your child walk for the first time has a meaning of being proud, being joyful, and I know that that's not a like it doesn't, like, saying that sounds a bit weird, but it means that to you because you act as if you are proud of your child for being able to walk. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and how about if, to extrapolate that just a little bit, if I don't know when children first start walking, but say you're at the period and they're
1 years
still
old.
not being able to walk. Okay, 1 year old. Say you're at 2.5 years old and they have yet to walk. Would you not figure that that means that you should probably take them to a doctor because you value your children and want to make sure there's not any biological, impairments?
Or I would even modify that a bit by saying if you notice that your child wasn't walking by 2.5, you would bring them to the doctor, and that shows that you implicitly think that the fact that they're not walking means something bad. Right.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense to me. But I would say, okay, so the child isn't walking yet. They should be walking. So that means so you're thinking of meaning as compelling compelling action, which is what someone said earlier. And so
I'd say compelling evidence. That's compelling evidence. Yeah.
Or
so are you asking what is compelling evidence for me? Like I feel
No, not really. No.
like something's wrong with me. What? Not really, but I don't know what I'm being asked. Because
I wonder
with
if
that
there's any.
example,
Yeah.
I can try to describe, like, I guess, you know, there will be information that enters my awareness, and a thought will
Right.
arise in my awareness where I'm
Right.
noticing, oh gosh, they're still not walking, and then there's a layers, and there's a richness, and there's a, well, have they progressed, are they cruising, they're moving along their timeline. So I guess there's not any specific moment that compels anything. It's just I don't.
The
I'm
information.
still confused because I wouldn't say that any one moment compelled me to take them to the doctor. It was a history
Right.
leading up to a moment that made me aware and made me make the call. But that doesn't, to me, that's not like there wasn't a specific thing that was so meaningful to make me reach for the phone. Not in that example, like you just have a moment of realizing, oh, maybe something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not understanding how that's meaning.
Yeah.
but maybe someone else can share what a song meant to them, or share what they find meaningful and why, because I can tell you about my values and everything else, but I really don't think that I do that. And maybe most people do that, and that's interesting. It's interesting that I don't think that way. And Pangburn will say that's a difficult question, and should I be doing that and why? But it's confusing to me, which is also makes it very interesting to me that I'm thinking of things very differently than normal people.
Or yeah,
because I'm not so normal, and I'm aware that I'm not.
Well, I'd like to say that there were several, 3 or 4 people that gave answers that were basically saying, yeah, I don't think there's any inherent meaning in life, a nihilistic materialist perspective. So there were a lot of other
and so that
people.
was the
They just
original
described
question.
it in a different way. Yeah, they just described it in a different way. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
you're
because
not
the
alone. Let me point that out.
the
You're not
question was the
necessarily
meaning
alone.
of life, and
Right,
I guess
right.
you could ask, you might think of that as, what's the purpose of life? I think that's kind of, when people say, what is the
Purpose,
meaning
okay.
of life,
Purpose.
they really are asking about the purpose of it. Would you agree with that? Or are they actually ascribing a meaning that they can define and articulate? Do people have an articulate answer for a meaning of life? I want to hear about the people that do have an answer. What? Oh, God gives them
Right.
meaning?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
mean-
that sounds weird to me. That
Well,
doesn't make sense to me.
I
That's
guess
all I
The
know.
fact that God gives people meaning.
because I'm one
Yeah.
of the people who would say that. I guess I could.
Yeah. How
Can
would
you say
God
what
give you
meaning?
meaning in
Can you
life,
say
Richard?
what meaning God gives to you? Can you
Yeah.
describe that?
Yeah,
Mhm.
let's see. I think the meaning comes from being nested within a larger story. And so that story goes something like, I as a human being, along with all other of my brothers and sisters in my race, are have a fundamental flaw in the in their being that they have, because they fell away from a naive perfection, and that the creator of this world, a loving and wise God who calls us his father, was willing to step in and sacrifice both himself and his son in order to alleviate that flaw that I share in. And so because of that, I am grateful to him. I give him glory because of what he's done. And that instinct, that drive to give him glory is something that gives me meaning in life.
Is that purpose? And let me ask, do you think that God gave you significance and purpose?
Yeah. Yes.
Is that what you are describing as meaning? Like, is that the meaning that was given to you? It involves purpose and significance, like you matter, and you're here for a reason.
Because I have purpose, I have meaning.
Are they the same?
I don't think so, because as you were alluding to, meaning, or not as you were alluding to, meaning is an experience, right? Meaning is oh gosh, how to describe the experience of meaning? It's
That's
something.
just, yeah, it's a struggle. That's the whole struggle.
It's something like whatever you are participating in when you feel as though you are a part of
So you're significant.
a part of a structure greater than you. Yeah, it's the experience of being oh dear, the words are, it's the experience of having a purpose, or the experience of I forget the word you just used.
Significance?
It's the experience of having significance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that makes sense to me. And that's what I would call it, you know. And I am annoying because I ask a lot of questions to understand, and I choose the words that I use, like, you know, I get stuck on words like that. But I think it's accurate to call that significance and to call that purpose, instead of meaning. And then maybe that's just my weird definition of meaning. And if I understand that that's what you guys are asking, you know, maybe I can answer it more easily. But I, you know, meaning of life, you know, purpose of life, you know, I've tried to answer that, and I usually try to answer like, why are we here? What's the purpose? And maybe that answers the what is the meaning? Because I don't think it means anything, but but something can have a purpose, or I can try to justify my purpose here and why I'm here, or what I can do while I'm here. Like, am I significant? I don't really think so. You know, that's not to say that I'm not valuable and my kids wouldn't, you know, find me significant, but in the grand scheme of things, this life, or life as we know it, and everyone else's life would go on, and things would continue to exist as they do. I'm not, you know, I'm just but a speck, and we all kind of are. Maybe collectively we're something else, and I'm getting off on a tangent, but you know, the I don't even think of it that life has a purpose, but I tend to see it as like we are evolving and we're experiencing our humanity, you know, like whether we're intelligence experiencing itself through a human avatar of a body, you know, kind of thing. That kind of makes sense to me, but really, like, what's it all for? And I think that we evolve and we learn about things, and we challenge how we see the world, and we struggle through things, and you know, what's the purpose, what's the end game? And I tend to kind of call that like love, you know, like, can we learn and can we choose to be loving? And is that the epitome of, is that the goal? And in some ways, you know, I can relate to that, because I think that my experiences are better when I choose to be, when I choose love and it's unconditional, and there's a freedom inherent in it, and it's liberating to just choose love regardless of what anyone else, you know, does or says or whatever. And there's a peaceful ease about going through life. That's not to say that you're just going to sit on your ass and do nothing kind of thing, but
Yeah, and yeah,
I don't
I
want
mean,
to
I
change the
that sounds a
conversation,
lot
but
like what I would say. And unfortunately, I have to go and grab dinner, but I
Yeah.
hope someone can pick that up, and this
Yeah,
will
I
be
just
a
want to
useful conversation. Goodbye, all.
yeah, thanks. And
Yes,
thanks,
sir.
Jamie.
bye.
Nivek, I just want to ask you
Hello.
this question and
Uh-oh.
get your answer. What does your life mean to you?
It means the benefit for self and others and the
Okay.
environment around me. Well-being.
So when you when you, like, let's use an example. Do you have something that means a lot to you, like a keepsake?
Yeah.
And what would it mean to you to lose that?
Well, it would it brings back it helps to bring back memories of
Right. So a
of
loss.
the past.
So it would mean a loss of memory recall, or a loss of the joy
I'd
you
say
get
that.
from that process. Okay.
Because I mean, sometimes when you go about your life, things that trigger emotions,
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand why you feel that way when you come across it. But then when you sit and you introspect and think about it, you'll say, okay, it reminds me of this that happened. It could be negative or positive. You know what I mean? So it could be something that connects to something else that is of a reminder, that is of importance.
Mm.
So because that thing isn't there, so that's that you have that kind of as an extension of that person, or whatever that was important. So in a way, yeah, you can things can be recalled, and sometimes things can be sometimes things that are like subconscious, that are deeply subconscious, can be recalled by because that happens to folks all the time. They have a certain emotion when they come across something, and they don't understand why. When they introspect and they realize, okay, this reminds me of that person or this event.
So when someone asks you, what does your life mean to you? You say, my life means to maximize, I think you were talking about well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when this idea of meaning gets clarified more, you eventually do get down to your moral foundation, because you do have to go all the way to the fundamental thing that is driving the meaning.
I don't see you separate of.
Yeah, because meaning's going to come from things that we point to and say, that's good, or that I don't care about. So you're doing these good and not so good values on things, and that's fundamentally coming from your moral your moral foundation.
I don't separate myself from my environment, because I draw meaning and understanding from my environment. That's why, and others. So that's why I don't. You know what I mean? It would be that viewpoint of self and well-being of environment and others. Because you draw meaning of in order to go about and survive, you draw meaning from that. And understanding in order to know how to go about surviving.
Yeah. I think ZMO was trying to get in there. Or
Yeah, I was going to ask Nivik, like, keepsakes and the such. Would you say that, I was going to say, would you say that meaning is often attributed subconsciously, and then especially through introspection or other such things, that you ultimately can uncover your meaning for things? Because I'll give you an example. My grandparents gave me a necklace, and my grandparents are very near and dear to my heart. And they gave me a necklace a long time ago. I have it on right now, and it says some positive quote like, you can do whatever you want. And I, wore it for about 4, 5, 6 years, and people would ask me, "Oh, where'd you get that necklace from?" And I tell my grandparents and show them what it said. And in the past couple of years, and they're still alive, but it literally sits in the middle of my chest, the length of it, and it's like a dog tag. And over the years, when people would ask me that, I would transfer it from just a simple explanation, and I would say, well, my grandparents are near and dear to my heart. They gave me this, and wearing this, the quote literally lays directly on my heart, and so it's metaphorical in that respect, and it always keeps my grandparents close to my heart. in a literal and metaphorical sense. So it was, my point is, it was subconscious before, and then perhaps subconscious before, and then I attributed meaning to it later.
Yeah.
And you know, so would you say that keepsakes such as that are a reliable stimulus to
It's a
bring
strong
up,
recall. Yeah.
yeah, the reason I use a reliable stimulus is, it's something material you can always go to, yeah. So
Like a video. You know what I mean? You can sit and
yeah,
watch a video, but you had those memories, and it's a strong reminder of probably a certain time. You know what I mean? That was that really brought back a lot in experiences.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you don't have to have like a tape recorder. Walk, I mean, like a video. I mean, people do that too, but it's kind of the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People would have a video of memories, past memories, but I mean, if you have something that was given to you by them at a certain time, yeah, it could be a good recall.
Careless. We are talking about meaning today. What does your life mean to you? Careless gone. Well, guys, I want to wrap up this discussion for today. I'll meet all of you on Discord down in the tab. Everyone on YouTube, thank you so much for stopping by. This was a really good conversation today. People were really brave to delve into meaning, which is a harder thing to talk about than you might expect. So bravo to everyone who chipped in. Thank you